The post-Civil War frontier was a death trap for freed slaves with nowhere to run, and 16-year-old Zara had no family, no money, and no hope left. Bounty hunters tracked her across Texas, hired by her former owner's son who refused to accept emancipation and wanted his property back. When cornered in an abandoned cabin, she expected to die alone until a silent cowboy stepped between her and the men hunting her. Tom hadn't spoken since losing his wife and child to violence, but something about this desperate girl reminded him of what he'd failed to protect. Now Zara must trust the one man willing to risk everything for a stranger. While Tom faces the choice between his vow of silence and saving the last piece of family he never knew he had, dust swirled in the canyon air. 3 men lay still in the dirt. Zara's hands trembled around the smoking revolver. Tom's chest rose and fell beneath her palm. Blood seeped through his shirt, dark stains spreading across worn fabric. Hoofbeats thundered closer. A sheriff's posse cresting the ridge. She pressed her ear to his ribs. Faint heartbeat against her cheek, warm breath on her wrist. The riders would arrive in seconds. 3 dead bounty hunters, a black girl with a gun. No jury would hear her side. Tom's eyes fluttered open. Found hers. Something passed between them in that look. Understanding. Forgiveness. Choice. She could run, leave him bleeding in the dust, save herself. Or stay. Face the rope. Die beside the only person who ever protected her. The sound of horses grew louder. 3 weeks earlier, rain hammered the cabin roof like fists on wood. Zara pushed through the broken door. Water dripped from her torn dress. Hunger carved hollows in her cheeks. She expected emptiness. Found a man instead. He sat by the firelight, rifle across his knees, weathered hands cleaning the barrel with careful strokes. Gray touched his temples. Lines mapped his face like dry riverbeds. She raised the rusty knife. Blade caught the flame's glow. He looked up, didn't speak, didn't move, just watched her with eyes that had seen too much dying. She waited for him, to grab the rifle, call for help, demand she leave. Instead, he gestured to a chair. Pushed a bowl of stew across the rough table. Steam rose from the wooden rim. The kindness confused her. 3 months on the road had taught her that strangers wanted payment. Always. She kept the knife raised, took the chair, ate without lowering. Her guard. He returned to cleaning his weapon. Methodical. Quiet. Like she wasn't holding steel to his throat. When the bowl emptied, he stood. Moved to a trunk in the corner. Pulled out a worn photograph. Black woman. Mixed child. Both smiling, at something beyond the frame. He traced their faces with his thumb. Pointed to them, then to the ground. Dead. Both of them dead. Understanding hit her like cold water. His silence wasn't choice. It was grief. He offered her blankets. A space by the fire. Safety for the night. She took them but didn't sleep. Watched him through half-closed eyes. Planned to steal his horse at dawn. Morning brought visitors. 3 riders approached through the mist. Spurs jangled on the porch. Boots heavy on wooden boards. Tom moved, faster than she expected. Lifted a floorboard. Pushed her into the root cellar below. Darkness swallowed her whole. Their voices filtered through the gaps. Rough. Demanding. Looking for a runaway. Girl named Zara Washington. Rewards $200. She heard Tom moving above. Chair scraping. Coffee pot clanging. Boss says she's dangerous, been stealing, causing trouble for decent folk. Through the floorboard cracks, she watched Tom serve them coffee. Calm, unhurried, like he had all day. Her heart hammered against her ribs. $200, more money than most men saw in a year. Enough to tempt a saint. The lead bounty. Hunter leaned back in his chair. Marcus Whitmore wants his property back. Dead or alive pays the same. Tom's hand stilled on the coffee pot. Property. The word hit like a slap. She was free. Had papers to prove it. But Whitmore didn't care about papers. You see her, you send word. Whitmore's got men all over Texas. She can't run forever. They finished their coffee, mounted up, rode toward the next county. Tom had pointed them wrong, sent them chasing shadows. When their hoofbeats faded, he lifted the floorboard, helped her climb out. She faced him across the small room, knife back in her hand. Why? He moved to the trunk again, pulled out folded papers, legal documents with official seals, her emancipation records. How did you get these? He couldn't answer with words. Drew instead. Crude sketches on brown paper. Plantation house. Figures in chains. Men with whips. Then fire. Smoke. People running. More drawings. Bodies in shallow graves. Families torn apart. Women and children loaded into wagons. Her blood turned to ice water. He's done this before. Tom nodded. Drew a map. Marked locations with X's, each mark a place where freed slaves had vanished. Whitmore wasn't just chasing her, he was hunting them all. Those bounty hunters, they're not lawmen. Tom shook his head. Drew more figures, men with ropes, wagons heading south toward Mexico, slave traders, operating outside the law. She understood now. This wasn't about one runaway girl. This was about a man who refused to accept that the war was over. Tom gathered supplies, rifle, ammunition, food for the trail. She watched him prepare. You don't have to do this. He stopped, looked at the photograph again. The woman's face, the child's smile, then at Zara. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. Family, the only family he had left. He shouldered his pack. Opened the door, waited. She could stay, try to hide, wait for Whitmore's men to find her, or trust the silent cowboy who'd already saved her once. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, dark promise of harder weather ahead. She followed him into the morning light, into whatever came next. Behind them, smoke rose from the cabin's chimney. Last warmth they'd know for a long time. The hunt had begun. The trail stretched like a scar across broken earth. Tom rode ahead, silent as the grave he'd left behind. Zara followed on the mare he'd given her, kept distance between them. Trust came hard when survival depended on it. He taught without words, pointed to cloud formations that meant rain, showed her how to read wind patterns in the grass, which water ran clean, which would poison. She learned fast, had to. But his eyes lingered too long when he thought she wasn't watching. Something hungry in his stare, something that made her skin crawl. At night he drew in his journal, firelight dancing, across the pages. Always the same subjects, the dead woman, the dead child, and now her. Her face appearing beside theirs in crude charcoal strokes, same angles. Same bone structure, like he was trying to capture something that kept slipping away. She discovered the drawings by accident. Journal fell open while he slept. Pages scattered, in the wind. Her breath caught. Dozens of sketches, her profile, her hands, her eyes staring back from worn paper. What is this? Tom woke, saw the scattered pages, the accusation in her stance. She held up a drawing, her face rendered with careful detail. Too much detail. You've been watching me, drawing me like I'm some kind of ghost. He reached for the journal. She pulled back. You trying to make me into your dead wife? His hands stilled, eyes widened. She'd hit something, some truth he'd been hiding. Tom grabbed for his journal with desperate movements, started drawing furiously, hands shaking as charcoal scraped across paper. First sketch, the plantation house where she'd grown up. How could he know that place? Second sketch, a young woman being sold, chains on her wrists, tears on her face. Third sketch, the same woman older, standing beside Tom, wedding dress made, from flour sacks, joy in her smile. Zara's heart stopped. The woman in the photograph, the one he'd mourned. Same nose, same stubborn chin, same eyes that stared back from every mirror. Sarah? Her sister's name fell from her lips like a prayer. Memories flooded back. Sarah braiding her hair. Sarah taking beatings meant for her. Sarah promising they'd be together again someday. Sarah sold away when Zara turned 8, vanished into the nothing that swallowed slaves. Tom drew faster, more images spilling across the page. Sarah heavy with child, Tom's hands on her belly, the three of them by a fireplace. Family, then fire, smoke, bodies in the dirt, Confederate deserters, revenge raid while Tom worked distant pastures, Sarah and the boy caught defenseless, Tom's face when he returned, finding them dead, burying them with his bare hands. The vow of silence he'd made at their graves. Words were for the living. He had no living left. Until now. You knew. Soon as you saw me, you knew. Tom nodded, pointed to her eyes. Sarah's eyes looking back at him from a stranger's face. The sister Sarah had talked about. The little girl she'd protected. The family she'd never stopped missing. Zara sank to her knees. 16 years of wondering. 16 years of believing Sarah had forgotten her. Instead, Sarah had found love, built a life, created the family they'd dreamed about as children, only to lose it all to senseless violence. Tom wasn't trying to replace Sarah. He was trying to protect what remained of her, the blood she'd died loving. Understanding changed everything, the way he watched her, the careful way he spoke through gestures, the protection he offered without question. She was his last link to the woman he'd lost. He was her connection to the sister she'd mourned. Family. Broken and scattered, but still family. The days that followed carried different weight. Tom taught her to shoot. Really shoot. Not just point and hope. She showed him how Sarah used to laugh. Memories spilling out like water from a broken dam. They spoke in a language of shared loss. Grief that recognized itself across different wounds. Tom began pointing out things Sarah would have loved. Wildflowers, cloud shapes, the way morning light hit the mountains. Zara told stories Sarah had shared. Their mother's songs, their father's hands. The brother sold south before either girl could walk. Slowly, Tom's face changed. Lines softened. Eyes held warmth instead of just watchfulness. But the world wouldn't let them heal in peace. The trading post squatted like a wound on the empty plain. Necessary stop for supplies. Dangerous ground for fugitives. Wanted posters covered the board outside. Tom's face stared back at them. Zara's beside it. $500 reward, dead or alive. Enough money to buy a ranch, or a man's silence. The trader studied them through the window, hand resting on the shotgun behind his counter. Tom gathered what they needed. Ammunition, jerked meat, coffee, grounds. The trader's eyes never left Zara's face. You folks traveling far? Tom paid in coins, kept his hat low. Mighty big reward for a couple of drifters. The trader's hand shifted on the shotgun stock. Zara felt the walls closing in, every face in the small crowd turning toward them. Calculations being made, $500, more than most would see in 5 years. The sheriff pushed through. The door, badge gleaming on his vest, hand already reaching for his gun. Well now, what do we have here? Tom stepped between Zara and the lawman, body coiled tight as a spring. The sheriff's smile held no warmth. Marcus Whitmore's been looking for you folks. Seems you've caused him considerable trouble. Other men gathered behind the sheriff, hands on weapons, eyes on the reward money. Now we can do this easy or hard, but either way, you're coming with me. Tom's silence stretched like a held breath. Then he moved, fast as lightning, faster than seemed possible for a man his age. He grabbed the sheriff's wrist, twisted. The gun clattered to the floor. Run. The first word he'd spoken since Sarah died, rough with disuse but clear as a bell. Zara ran. Gunfire erupted behind them. Wood splintered, glass shattered. Zara reached the horses first. Tom stumbled from the trading post, blood on his knuckles, fire in his eyes. They rode hard across broken ground, dust clouds marking their passage like smoke signals. Behind them a posse formed, sheriff's voice carrying on the wind, orders shouted, horses saddled. The chase had begun in earnest. Tom led them into rough country, canyons carved by ancient water, stone walls that blocked the wind and hid their trail. But the damage was done. Every lawman in Texas would know their faces now. Every bounty hunter would smell the money. They made camp in a box canyon. No fire. Cold beans from the can. Water rationed like liquid gold. Zara watched Tom clean his rifle in moonlight. Methodical movements. Practiced ease. "You hurt that sheriff bad?" Tom shook his head. Showed her his scraped knuckles. Surface wounds. Nothing serious. "Good. Don't need killing on our conscience." But killing might find them anyway. The posse would carry rope alongside their guns. Judge and jury riding together. Tom pulled out his journal. Drew by starlight. New images now. Wanted posters. Sheriff's badges. Nooses hanging from tree branches. The net tightening around them. "Maybe we should split up." Tom looked up from his drawing, eyes sharp in the darkness. "You got no reason to die for me. Could disappear into Mexico. Start fresh." Tom closed the journal, reached for the photograph. Sarah and the boy smiling back from faded paper. He pointed to Sarah, then to Zara, then to himself. Family didn't abandon family, not while breath remained. "I'm all that's left of her." Tom nodded, but his gesture said more. She was all that remained of his world, his purpose, his reason to keep breathing. Without her, he returned to being a ghost. Morning brought worse news. Riders on the horizon. Too many to count, too close to outrun. Tom studied them through the spyglass, shook his head grimly. Not just the sheriff's posse, private men, professional hunters. Whitmore had arrived. They broke camp fast, rode deeper into the canyons, but the walls that hid them also trapped them. The pursers knew these lands, herded them like cattle toward slaughter. By afternoon, the trap became clear. High walls on three sides, single exit blocked by armed men. Whitmore sat his horse at the canyon mouth, well-dressed, well-armed, smile cold as winter. "Thomas McKenna, been looking for you." Tom said nothing, hand resting on his rifle stock. "I'm a reasonable man. No cause for bloodshed. Just hand over my property and ride away rich." Zara felt the insult like a physical blow. Property, as if emancipation meant nothing. 500 in gold, enough to disappear proper. Whitmore's smile widened. "Course, if you prefer the hard way, that suits me fine. Dead or alive pays the same." The bounty, hunters spread out, rifles ready, no mercy in their faces. Tom dismounted, walked forward, hands visible but ready. Smart man, knew you'd see reason. But Tom kept walking, past the point of negotiation, into the space where words ended and choices began. "See, the thing is, McKenna, this ain't just about one runaway girl." Whitmore gestured to his men. "Got me a business arrangement. Folks down in Mexico pay good money for workers, don't matter if they got papers or not." The truth hit like cold water. This wasn't about reclaiming former slaves. This was human trafficking, pure and simple. Been operating 2 years now. 100 head moved south. Good profit margins. Some of the bounty hunters shifted uncomfortably. They'd signed on to hunt fugitives, not kidnap free citizens. "Your girl there ain't even from my daddy's plantation. Just picked her up along the way. Pretty young thing like that brings premium prices." Zara's blood turned to ice. She'd never been Whitmore's property, never been on his land. She was just convenient prey. How many others? The words scraped from Tom's throat, rusty with disuse. "Oh, you got questions now? 100, maybe more. Hard to keep count when business is booming. Families torn apart, children sold. Freedom turned into chains, all for profit." Tom's hand moved toward his gun. Whitmore's men tensed. Now don't go getting heroic, McKenna. You're outnumbered 10-1. But Tom had stopped calculating odds. This wasn't about survival anymore, this was about justice. Last chance. Hand her over. Take your gold. Right away. Tom looked back at Zara. She saw the decision in his eyes. He was going to fight. All of them. Hopeless odds. Just like he couldn't fight for Sarah and the boy. Tom, no. But he was already moving, drawing iron, finding targets. The canyon exploded in gunfire. Horses screamed. Men shouted. Bullets sparked. Off stone. Tom rolled behind a boulder, rifle cracking, each shot finding its mark. 3 men down, 7 still shooting. Zara grabbed Tom's spare rifle, found cover, joined the fight. She'd never killed before, never wanted to. But Whitmore's operation had to end. The trafficking, the kidnapping, the buying and selling of human souls. Her first shot took down a bounty hunter, clean through the shoulder. He dropped his weapon, crawled for cover. Tom's eyes met hers across the battlefield, something like pride in his gaze. Sarah would have fought too, would have stood her ground against evil. The gunfight raged until sunset. Then silence fell like a curtain. Smoke drifted through the canyon. Dust settled on still forms. Tom lay bleeding behind his boulder. Bullet through the shoulder, another through his leg, but alive. Still breathing, 3 bounty hunters dead, others wounded, retreated with their boss. For now. Zara knelt beside Tom, pressed cloth against his wounds, blood soaked through her fingers. We hurt them bad. Maybe they'll give up. Tom shook his head, pointed toward the canyon mouth. More riders approaching. Fresh men, fresh weapons. Whitmore's voice echoed off the walls. You made this personal, McKenna. Now everybody dies. The final assault was coming. Tom tried to sit up, gasped with pain. Too much blood lost, too many wounds. He pressed the photograph into Zara's hands, Sarah's face smiling up at her. Then his rifle, still warm from the fight. His meaning was clear. Time to run. Save herself. Leave him to die alone. No. She helped him to his feet, shouldered his weight. They'd face whatever came together. As family. The hoofbeats grew louder. The riders came at dawn. Whitmore's voice carried across the canyon like a death sentence. Last chance, McKenna. Send out the girl. Maybe I let you live. Tom's blood had soaked through the bandages, face pale as morning mist, but his eyes burned with purpose. Zara checked his wounds. Shoulder stable, leg still bleeding. He could, right if he had to. We can't fight them all. Tom nodded, knew the odds, knew they were trapped. But he pulled out his journal, drew one final image. The army fort 50 miles north. Federal marshals, justice. They'll never believe us. Tom tapped the journal, pages filled with evidence, sketches of the trafficking operation. Names, locations, dates, proof of Whitmore's crimes. You're thinking we run for the fort? Tom pointed to himself. Then to the canyon mouth. He'd stay, hold them off, buy her time. No. The word came out harder than she intended. Tom looked up, saw something in her face that hadn't been there before. Determination. Sarah's stubborn streak burning bright. We go together or not at all. Tom started to argue, gestured to his wounds, the impossible distance. Together. She helped him to his feet, shared his weight. They moved toward the horses like one person with 2 shadows. The first shots rang out as they reached the canyon's back wall. Whitmore's men flooding in from the entrance. But Zara had spotted something Tom missed. A narrow crack in the rock face, barely wide enough for a horse. They squeezed through as bullets sparked off stone behind them, emerged into a hidden valley, safe for the moment. Tom slumped against his saddle, breathing hard, blood loss taking its toll. How far to the fort? He held up 5 fingers. 5 hours of hard riding. Maybe 6. Can you make it? Tom's smile held no humor, but he nodded. Sarah's sister deserved his best effort. They rode through country that seemed carved from bone. White rock, sparse grass, sky the color of old pewter. Behind them, dust clouds marked pursuit. Whitmore wouldn't give up easy, too much money at stake. The sun climbed higher. Tom swayed in his saddle. Zara rode close, ready to catch him if he fell. Talk to me, stay awake. Sarah. The word came out cracked, broken. She sang. When she worked. Zara remembered, her sister's voice floating over the cotton fields, sweet and clear as morning water. What songs? Swing Low, Amazing Grace, old hymns. Tom's eyes focused on something distant. Made everything bearable. They rode in silence after that, each lost in memories of a woman who'd connected their lives. The fort appeared like a mirage. Wooden walls, flying flag, soldiers drilling in the yard. Tom barely stayed conscious as they approached the gates. Zara called out to the sentries. We need to see the commanding officer, federal business. The captain who met them had hard eyes and a harder jaw, listened without interruption as Zara told their story. Tom's journal provided the evidence, sketches, names, locations of the trafficking operation. This man Whitmore, you're certain about these accusations? Zara nodded. He's got 100 people in chains, maybe more. The captain studied Tom's drawings. Professional interest replacing skepticism. We've been hunting Confederate holdouts, slavers operating outside the law. He called for his sergeant. Prepare a patrol, full strength. We ride within the hour. The rescue happened faster than expected. Federal troops surrounded Whitmore's operation, freed dozens of captives, arrested the entire network. Whitmore himself tried to run, caught at the Mexican border with a wagon full of stolen people. The trials lasted weeks. Tom testified from his hospital bed. Zara's witness sealed the prosecutions. Justice came in the form of rope and federal prison. The trafficking network dismantled forever. 6 months later, Colorado territory stretched before them like a promise. Clean air, open sky, land that had never known slavery. Tom's wounds had healed, left him with a limp and careful movements, but alive, grateful. Zara had learned to read and write, Tom teaching her letters by firelight. Sarah would have been proud. They'd built a small ranch. Nothing fancy, but theirs. Honest work, honest living. Tom spoke more now. Not much, but enough. Words came easier when they mattered. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Dusty Ryder brought it from the territorial capital. Zara read it twice, then handed it to Tom with shaking fingers. Sir, I believe you knew my father. I am seeking Thomas McKenna. My mother was Sarah. I am your son. The boy had survived, hidden during the raid, raised by neighbors, spent years searching for his father. Tom stared at the letter, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his face. He's alive. Zara watched hope bloom in his eyes, the first real hope since Sarah died. Says he's in Denver, working for a freight company. Tom stood, walked to the window, stared at the mountains between them and the territorial capital. 3 days hard riding, through dangerous country, away from their safe life, but family called, blood called. We leave at dawn. Zara packed their supplies. Tom saddled the horses, both understanding that their peaceful time was ending, but ending toward something better. Something worth the risk. Tom mounted up, looked back at the cabin they'd built together. Sarah would have wanted this. Zara swung into her saddle, adjusted her hat against the morning sun. Some family you're born into, some you fight for, and some. She paused, looked at Tom, saw the man Sarah had loved, the father her nephew needed. Some you get to choose twice. They rode toward the rising sun, toward Denver, toward whatever came next. Behind them, the cabin stood empty, waiting. But ahead lay possibility. A family scattered by violence, reunited by choice. The mountains watched them go, silent witnesses to hope reborn. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. It helps motivate me write each story. See you tomorrow.